Okay, so I wanted it to have that old-timey feel, so I chose an appropriate bit of background. So, checking in code and data. You know, what are we going to do this time around? Is it going to be any different than what we did last time around? I'm sure everybody has fond feelings about Linker Day and what all, that whole process entails. All right, so first off, I wanted to talk about, you know, what the different kinds of data, different kinds of things that we check in. We have these meetings all the time where groups of us discuss this stuff and what our process is and how we can improve our procedures. But it's kind of nice to make sure that everybody's on the same page with the language that we're using and the things that we're talking about. So, the types of check-ins that you do, all right? We basically have 4 types of check-ins, if you want to kind of boil it down. We have code, data, code, and code data. Right? Code check-ins kind of what you do all the time, right? You make a little code change, you check it in, at some point in time it gets boiled into an executable that the whole team sees. No particular dependency on it other than the code that you write. Data dependency, you know, you're modifying script files, you're modifying configuration files, you're doing other things. Typical data stuff, very low impact, very low chance of breaking code, generally speaking. Code dependencies, okay? So this is why the linker found its way into the game project. Code dependencies are things that are like a linker change that requires a paired executable along with the game. Things like that, but it can also be other things like anything in the tool chain, converters, things like that. This has been one of the main reasons that we do linker days in the past, right? Is to make sure that these sort of dependent changes that would otherwise break everybody make it into the head revision in a smooth way. And then finally code data, which are like shader files, script files, other things like that that require new code executable along with that data change, all right? All right, so like I said, not much to say here, it's mostly what we do is code changes. So, you know, do your normal submit test your work, check it in. Be careful though, because you know some things can be code data dependencies. Just double check your work. Data, there's really not a whole lot to say here at all. Just make sure the game runs. Code. This is a real easy case for us. It's usually a linker game dependency. All right. If you have programmers built the linkers, it generally will resolve this problem. Just make sure that you handle versioning correctly. If you do put a change in that really does require people build new fast files, make sure you bump the fast file version number, so that way when the programmers attempt to run this thing later after building their own linkers, that they remember to actually link the data that's associated with the game. And then, you know, the build team generally makes sure that this operates in a safe way by posting game and linker data at the same time. Keep in mind also, other dependencies, toolchain dependencies, converters, copy map. I think we had a little misstep with copy map today, actually, just a few minutes ago. You know, be careful of dependencies that will break the head revision for people that don't have new linkers and executables, especially. If there's no way to tease apart a dependency, you know, then ultimately linker day is kind of unavoidable. Something where we have some sort of a gated procedure to get the data in the code and all these other dependencies into the head revision in a safe way. All right, which brings us to our worst operating case, code data. Sometimes, like I said, you have this dependency that you can't break. These things have to go on at the same time. You're pretty much tied to a linker day submission at that particular point in time. But we should be trying to reduce the total load against the build team. So like anything that you guys can check in that you can tease apart, where you can check the code in first, wait for the executable to post, and then you know the new executable, the old executable run against the old data without any modifications. By all means, hold on to the data and then check that in at a later time. You know, we might be able to work out some sort of process with the build team where if you break it into 2 pieces, maybe the build team can automate checking in that second piece for you without really calling it a linker day, per se. And then, you know, like I said, worst case, you have something that you'd have to use the linker day. So everybody, hold on. That means linker day. We're not gonna really change our daily procedure with regards to this stuff. Or at least at first, we're gonna try to minimize that kind of change that we do. But we also wanna minimize the amount of traffic that passes through the build team. So we wanna avoid days where we have like 11 simultaneous changes that result in 6 different kinds of breaks that everybody has to figure out, and then it takes 2 days to resolve this problem. Ideally, the secret of having this thing successful is that the build team is posting executables continuously as rapidly as they possibly can. Keep the head revision tested, stable, reduce the amount of delta that occurs in there, et cetera, et cetera. So, unfortunately, you know, the test times increase over the course of the project, so keep that in mind. You know, it'll be awesome right now, and 2 years from now, it's gonna take a day for the QA to sort of just test through the game. So we'll continue to try to work on this. We'll continue to try to improve the process. If you guys ever have any suggestions or ideas or anything that you think would help expedite all of this stuff, by all means, let me know about it, let Mark know about it, let anybody, let's kick it up and let's talk about it. Okay? Anybody have any questions?
How do we go about actually doing a linker day? I mean, submitting our change for linker.
I think part of that falls into PVD. Personally, I don't care for the way that we're doing it, where, notification goes out to someone 30 minutes ahead of when the build team would like to see their change list. I think that's something that we can improve upon. I think it's really hard for us to validate our work and make sure it's right within a very narrow time frame. But I'm open to suggestions. I don't know what the best way to work is right now.
Right now, Stephen, for you, just email field management and say, have a shelf that I need to get in, and there's not a lot of that going on right now, so
Right.
Yeah.
it should happen quickly.
Cool.
Oh, I wanted to bring up something I don't think you kind of covered, which was that one of the ways we're going to try to minimize the linker day traffic is actually to remove certain things from needing to go through the linker chain. Like, some of the talk is making the fast files so they're forward and backwards compatible. That's not in right now, but if we were to do something like that, you wouldn't have to change linkers for as much, because you could submit GDT changes that wouldn't necessarily affect data, so you just check them in and then it would be backwards compatible, things like that. And really try to make linker days for extremely exceptional things like big shader changes or large scale code changes.
Like, conceptually, the way you can think about the way that we work out of the head revision, right, is because we're checking in code changes, but there's a delta between the code change and the executable that the team is using. It's sort of as if you were operating within a branch, right, where the code is going in freely. The only other people in the branch are the coders. We're doing other systems sort of in a similar sort of virtual branch way, where it's not formally branched in Perforce, right? Like shaders is something that we're going to attempt this with, where we only make changes in the branch and then they migrate to the main line, but it'll hopefully speed things up. Maybe there's other opportunities for this sort of thing. If we're going to operate in that particular way, though, we should probably make sure that we're not editing freely in both branches, right? Because that's when we're going to run into lots of problems. But, I'll hand the floor to David. He's got a presentation for you today.